going on, everybody? This is Masaki from State 43, and today we're going to have a long video about Sin the Alliance. So I think it was like last video, somebody commented and said, "Oh man, are you embarrassed of Sin? Did they do something to you? Why are you hesitant to talk about them?" I'm not at all. And the in-game, I think, recently had an event that said something like, "Share with us how your alliance came to be." And I think this is a great time to do a video about Sin. So let's talk about it. Yeah. But to really start talking about Sin, we have to talk about where I came from. So I think it was around 2020, I think it was July, I started playing this game. I started playing on State 438, actually. Didn't know anything about the game. Basically didn't know, I didn't know anything about the game. So I started on that server. I joined an alliance named DWD. The leader was Mercy, and on that alliance, I think rank 1 was Mon the Monarchy, rank 2 was BOS at that time. Basically, I learned a bunch about the game from that server. I learned a bunch from the players in that game about how the game works. But at the same time, I also realized having a really active R5 of your alliance is very important. And so one of the things that we decided that was really, really important was making sure that we really have an active R5 that was always around to kind of go through with us about how things work, how to, how everything is going to kind of just be organized. The problem with Mercy was that she was basically not around. And so very quickly I realized there was going to be a problem if we were staying in this alliance with a leader that's basically inactive. And so part of what happened is that I, at the time, helped to stage a coup d'etat of the old alliance of DWD. We took over, or we merged with this smaller alliance, and then I basically, through the help of another great R4 back in the time, Ella, we burned all of the old DWD towers and then replaced them with our new Black Lotus towers. And here's a little proof that I was here on the server a long time ago, and this is almost like towards the end of the time I was there. So here you go. So on 10/17 I was still on the server. We took over whatever this is, bunker 4 looks like. So that's pretty much what happened on 438. So I helped kind of establish a new order, partially because Mercy was just around, but she wouldn't pass the leadership to someone else so that we can actually grow the alliance. And because she was basically not active, it really held us back as an alliance for a long time. After kind of helping, Insidious and other players on 438 with getting them a new home, getting them a new alliance, I decided it's time for me to move on and kind of build my own alliance on a different server. I think, if you guys know me, I'm a big min-maxer, so I'm very into high efficiency playing this game. So I always felt like, because I use 438 as a stepping stone learning server, I really didn't know how things worked. So I wanted to kind of start on a different server and really go from beginning, but with all the knowledge I've already acquired. So I think it was around that time I decided, hey, everything is already kind of settled on this server. So I decided to leave. Around that time, I think we only had 2 or 3 other people who wanted to come with me. So that was Ella, Negan, and I think that was about it. I think there were maybe 2 other players that were kind of there in a advisory role early on, but didn't really kind of come over and commit a lot. So we had to make a bunch of new friends. But for those of you who do know Ella, she has left the game, but she is a very organized person, unlike me, and so she really helped with building out a new server. So now we can finally talk about the history of Sin on the State 43. So Sin was established on 483. I picked 483 because honestly, a diversity of players. Around that time, I think it was like October, the Inju event was going on. So this is the official launch of State of Survival in Korea. So there was a lot of Korean players who were joining the game at that time. So you would find servers that were just full of Korean players. And it's not like I don't want to join a server like that. I just felt like the Korean players were too new to the game, that they didn't understand things like, state rules and how that benefits like a state's kind of growth together. So we kept on looking at different servers as they opened up, and I finally found 43. It was the first server I saw. There were a lot of English speakers, there were Russians, there were some Spanish speakers. So it felt like, hey, that's a pretty diverse server. Obviously, there were Korean alliances as well. So we decided to join there. Sim was the first alliance established in State 43. So I think the first question a lot of people have is, how do we come up with the name? That's actually pretty simple. Around the time of leaving 438, there was another player named Woody who kind of came from like server 100 or whatever. So he kind of helped us a lot out. But we had some brainstorming sessions. I came up with the Syndicate as a name, and the reason for that is because I wanted something that was simple and meaningful and powerful, right? I think having the is actually kind of just, it adds a little bit of space and power into the name. But the other reason for the Syndicate is because Syndicate is a family, and we're a cohesive unit that looks out for each other. So that's part of why the Syndicate was kind of crafted. We build out this alliance pretty much with our core members. So that was Ella, Ghost, Spartan was joined us pretty early on. Brick, Stone, Negan. We later recruited Amy and Daisy as well, and John. There were a lot of other players who then later, came and left and went, etc. But that was the core group of people that really helped us start everything. Yeah. So the first phase of starting this alliance obviously was establishing some sort of order on State 43. So myself and Ella, the people who Negan, we knew that probably having a set of rules is going to be useful for this server. So early on, we decided, hey, let's see if anybody is doing a state Discord. Ella didn't really want to do a state Discord because it's a lot of work to do that. But at the same time, it's something that probably we just needed to do eventually. There was a player named Midnight from the Alliance AOA. This is like super old history for everybody who's on 438 or 483 that knows this stuff. She actually built the first state Discord. However, she wasn't really into maintaining it. And so pretty soon it became a problem of who's going to manage maintaining this server, who's actually going to kind of stick around and make sure people are following rules, establishing all those things. So we realized Midnight wasn't doing that job, and we realized, myself and Ella, and we also realized that she was kind of iffy about even staying on this server altogether. She would message me and say, I don't know if I want to play on this server for some reason. So Ella and I decided that we had to take action into our own hands. So we built the actual 483 official state Discord as well. Along with that, we copied a bunch of the rules, and this is one of the benefits of coming from older state, is we copied a bunch of the rules that we had in state 438 over as a kind of like a starting point, and that was really helpful in kind of getting and establishing something pretty early on, pretty quickly. So that kind of helped with building these out. And around that time, just so everyone knows, there was BST, whose leader was Mori. There was Russ, whose leader was Mew. ACU had Candy, and a bunch of other alliances I just don't remember. But those are the ones I do remember. One of the benefits of establishing the Discord for 43 was that because that we now have a server, we now have a set of rules. But the problem with that is a lot of people also looked to Sin as kind of the alliance that was going to run this server or kind of arbitrate. And we really tried to stay away from it, but it was unavoidable, being that we were also rank 1 in power pretty much consistently throughout the server. We were top 3. I don't think we've ever fallen out of top 3. There were kind of a couple times where we've fallen to 3, I think. But most of the time we're 1 or 2, and most of that time was spent as power rank 1. So around that time, the first major event that hit the server was the TNT Burns Everyone event. So there were 2 players, I think. It was Reaper and Death Awaits from TNT Alliance that decided, hey, it would be fun if we start burning a lot of smaller alliances. This is after we established rules about no hitting players in their hive, no outside of kill event, no just indiscriminate hitting people, burning them, zeroing them, etc. Really, the reason for having these rules is because the state is really early or really young. A lot of players just don't know how the game works, and we want to make sure there's like I don't want to safe space, I guess, for players to kind of like learn the game, enjoy it. It's not very enjoyable if you are on the receiving end of like a 0, which is basically somebody attacks you until you have nothing, no resources, no troops, nothing. It takes a long time to recover from, and many players who get 0s just quit the game. And I mean, I felt like it was very destructive to have a couple players who were inciting the entire alliance to do this. Now, I will say TNT, it wasn't the entire alliance doing this, but of course, having their leaders do this alliance-wide and kind of lead their alliance to do this was just very negative. So quickly, I worked with a lot of the leaders back then. So, the people I've mentioned, Mew, Mori, etc. And we've established a team that went out there and kind of dealt with the situation. Now, I will say, in retrospect, I felt like maybe I could have done some things better. One of the examples was we actually went into the TNT hive and started burning TNT. In retrospect, I think that was the wrong way to do it. We really shouldn't have punished the alliance for the sins, if you will, of the alliance leaders. Now, we were taunting them, saying, hey, why don't you come back to your hive and protect your players, right? But I think in retrospect, I would still have done it differently, where we just go out there and burn them directly. So I think, if I could take that back, I would, and I would do it differently. But I think the other benefit of having done that early on was really show everybody on the server, like, we weren't going to be a server that was just going to fall into chaos. We weren't going to let some players ruin the experience for everyone else. And I think that was a very powerful message to send early on, not just for the players who were really strong, but also for the players who were weaker, to know that they're like, hey, this server is actually going to be pretty cool. Like, there are going to be players who kind of cohesively think, and they're strong enough to do this, right, to enforce the law, but cohesively think and play this game together as a team. So that happened. That was a pretty big major event, right? Around at the end of that event, there was a pretty major exodus of sim players as well, right? So we became pretty strong on the server. Obviously, we had a lot of the top players. One of the challenges that we faced also was, well, it was a little bit top heavy. Like, we had maybe, I would say, like 20 out of the top like 50 players, something like that, in our alliance. And so what ended up happening was a lot of people, like, I think, Brick, Karma, Rogue, a bunch of these players early on decided, hey, we want to join different lines. I think they all joined BST around that time. And part of it obviously is the handling of the TNT burns everyone event. But the other part of it too was just kind of this overall understanding of feeling like, hey, it's really boring to be number one and have no challenges. So I felt like overall that was, it made sense. Of course, being a leader, it sucks to lose like a ton of your players. It definitely didn't feel good. But at the same time, we wanted to have a place where, players could safely grow. So it was a really interesting balance that we had to kind of establish early on. Yeah. Around that time too, I think we had to deal with the who would end up being the heel of 483 was Ganj. So Ganj is actually a player in Sin. Was his player in Sin? I think he has quit the server since then. But he would always cause problems and cause trouble for the state, but also for Sin back then. So we would always try to figure out how to deal with him and his shenanigans. So that was pretty funny too. I'll just say it like, just take a pause and say, if you are R5 or a server, just expect there to be drama. And that's all part of the gameplay too. So drama is really real. Drama is everywhere. So don't worry too much. And honestly, don't take everything super seriously. It's just a game at the end. And while not everyone will agree with you, the fact is, if you try to make everyone happy, then obviously you're not going to make anyone happy. So kind of go out there, do what you think is right. And I think that is some, really good, just kind of principle to kind of follow and live by. Yeah. So moving up, so Sin was going up to the first Capital Clash. This is Capital Clash 1 on 483. because I think I said some stuff in like in Chinese in the state chat. So I actually made friends with some of the Taiwanese players, including honestly still the top player of our server, Rumi. So kind of made friends with Rumi and other people from the kind of like Taiwanese alliance. And so they really helped out during Capital Clash 1. It was really between us and BST fighting for the crown there. And we did get it. So a lot of that was in thanks to a player named Stone in our alliance, because I think early on he dumped a good chunk of money into the game and really pushed pretty hard to be pretty strong. So yeah. So that was really great. But after Capital Clash 1, I think the same things that like, Brick and other players felt early on, Stone felt as well, which is this kind of feeling like, want to be part of a different alliance where there was some challenges, etc. elsewhere too. So that was really something he felt like was important for him to kind of build his own alliance, or kind of experience some of the things that I guess like the R5s were doing here at Sin. So he left Sin to take over. I think at the time he took over. What was that one alliance? And then he eventually would become R5 of BST, and now they're named PWR. So that's kind of where he is now. And also around that time, after winning Capital Clash 1, I felt like it was a good time for me to take a break from the game. I had some family events to kind of take care of. So I was absent from the game around that time. I was really, really, really glad that Spartan was around, because I felt like had Spartan not been there, had a lot of the other players that were great R4s that we built up, that we kind of trained, not been present, I think Sin probably would have fallen apart when either I left the game or when Stone left, etc. And around that time, there was another really, really great thing that happened was, for one reason or another, Karma, Rogue, and a lot of the players that originally left Sin came back. I think part of it too, again, it's just, I think there's just drama everywhere. Who knows what the actual reasons are, and I don't really care for what they are either. But, there was, basically they came back to Sin. And so for us, it was a good time to kind of like, have some more powerhouse players inside our alliance, but also have people who are like social players who are very cohesive with the entire state. So that was very, very helpful as well. So I left the game, handed R5K responsibility to Spartan, who really gladly took him on, and continues to be R5 even today. And I think he did a really great job just kind of like establishing rapport with everybody in the server, really building cohesion between us, the Sin Alliance, and a lot of different alliances. And overall, just, that's kind of where we are today, right? So coming back to the game, I've, noted there were a lot of other players that joined us that were really, really amazing. Like, Emmy is really funny. And these are the people who are like keeping the server super cheerful, because, once you get to a certain point, in this game, the game kind of slows down a lot. So a lot of what makes this game fun for a lot of players who decided to stay is, aside from the events that are happening, is kind of just the social element of it. So having players like Emmy, having the players like, Daisy, Joss, Shin, Shiva, Karma, V, being very active in state chat really helps to continue to build cohesion among the server. Other honorable mentions I want to say is, Sin's one of Sin's oldest allies, Arc, and then their leader Unit, and also their co-leader Dentis, were just really amazing, right? I think Dentis has left the game. I haven't seen her for a long time, and Unit's a little bit more passive in the game nowadays, but he's still around. I think this is just one of those really, really cool things about this game is like you make a lot of friends, and it really goes back to the whole reason why I started Sin was to build a place for people to kind of like get together and meet each other and make friends. We had like a player named John that eventually moved from 438 over to 483. He was also part of like an older state as well. And he recently left the game, but that's fine, because I know like, these friends that you make in this game that you've shared a lot of good moments with are kind of there for lifetime, I think John lives in France or something, and he said, hey, it'd be cool if you ever visit France, just let me know. Could take you around or whatever. You can stay at my house, etc. So this is the kind of things that you do, right? Is you play this game, you make a lot of these really great friends, and that's what matters. And I think that's one of the reasons why our State 43 is so cohesive, because I think early on, despite not everyone really enjoying the fact that rules were established pretty early on, not everyone is in agreement with what happened on the server. The fact that we have drama is just going to be true. We ended up being a very cohesive state. And this is, I discover this every single time we have state versus state, and we have players from other states kind of sharing their experience and realizing like we've been blessed, but honestly, it's just, due to a lot of the hard work of the players on this server to continue to have built and continue to build what we have today of a team, a team effort, a state where everyone feels like we're very together. Sure, we have our share of drama as well, but overall, it's a server that everyone can feel like, hey, they're having a lot of fun. They're all kind of being part of a team, and then whenever we have state versus state, we can really get together and really fight together, and there's something really enjoyable about that as well. So that's the not so brief history of the Syndicate, but also a little bit splattering of State 43's history. I know a lot of that is my perspective, and yes, I have missed a ton of the things that happened while I was out, so apologies for that, because I really just don't know what happened. But that's it. Yeah. So I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you're R5, please, let me know what your experience has been in your state. What kind of things have you done to, build this server and build up everyone together? I would just say last thing is, none of this is really easy. And I honestly think, I truly and honestly try to, build things like rules, not because I want to like dominate anything like that. I just wanted to kind of make an environment where a lot of players find it to be fair, not necessarily beneficial for them specifically, but fair, right? And I think overall that has been, despite all the problems we have had, been one of the elements that has kept this server together and really made our server really strong. So yeah, so there you go. That's the story of Sin and the story behind the server State 43. If you want to, if you want to meet us, just come over and create an account on 43, talk to us, chat with us in global chat, and see what we're like. We welcome every player. It's really cool. So that's it. Thanks, everyone. This is Masaki from State 43, and wishing everyone to stay classy.